Shakur Stevenson has recently set his sights on WBO light welterweight champion Teofimo Lopez, publicly calling him out and stating that he's willing to move up in weight to challenge for his title. While this potential matchup has sparked excitement among boxing fans, many believe Stevenson's motives are not as straightforward as they seem. Critics argue that Stevenson is making this move to avoid facing his mandatory challengers at 135 pounds, particularly the highly skilled Cruz and the powerful knockout artist Herrera. Both Cuban fighters have been eagerly waiting for their shot at Stevenson's WBC lightweight belt. But instead of defending his title against them, Stevenson appears to be looking for an escape route by jumping to the 140-pound division. This decision has raised suspicions that he is feeling the pressure from these rising stars and is trying to avoid a dangerous fight at lightweight. Critics of Stevenson believe that he may not be physically suited for the 140-pound division, especially when facing an explosive and hard-hitting fighter like Teofimo Lopez. Stevenson's recent performance against Josh Padley exposed some of his weaknesses as he struggled throughout the fight and lacked the knockout power needed to dominate. Despite facing an opponent who was not considered an elite-level fighter, Stevenson barely managed to secure a stoppage victory in the 9th round. Prior to that, he fought Artem Harutyunyan, a fighter coming off a loss and a long period of inactivity. These performances have raised concerns about Stevenson's ability to handle the bigger and stronger competition at light welterweight. Many analysts believe that if he steps into the ring with Lopez or other top contenders in the division, such as Gary-Antoine Russell or Richardson Hitchens, he could be in for a harsh reality check. Moving up to 140 pounds also carries significant risks beyond just the immediate fight against Lopez. Promoter Eddie Hearn has been carefully building up Stevenson's profile, hoping to eventually stage a blockbuster matchup with Davis. However, if Stevenson gets dominated by Lopez or another top fighter at light welterweight, the public interest in a fight with Tank could disappear. In the business of boxing, momentum and marketability are everything, and a bad loss could make Stevenson far less appealing as a pay-per-view attraction. Some even speculate that if he fails to impress at 140, Hearn might not be willing to invest in a long rebuilding process for Stevenson, as it would require extensive matchmaking and time to restore his credibility. At this point, the big question remains: is Stevenson genuinely interested in fighting Lopez, or is this simply a strategic move to avoid dangerous opponents at lightweight? If Stevenson truly believes in his skills, he should have no problem defending his title against his mandatory challengers before moving up in weight. However, if he chooses to bypass them, it will only add fuel to the speculation that he is looking for an easier path to a major payday, rather than proving himself against the toughest competition in his division. The boxing world will be watching closely to see what Stevenson decides, and his next move will speak volumes about his confidence, ambition, and willingness to take on the best fighters in the sport. If Stevenson does go through with his move to the 140-pound division, he will be stepping into a weight class filled with hungry, hard-hitting fighters who are naturally bigger and stronger than him. Unlike the lightweight division, where his defensive skills and slick boxing style have helped him avoid serious damage, light welterweight presents a whole new level of physicality. Beyond Lopez, the 140-pound division is stacked with dangerous opponents who could give Stevenson serious trouble. Fighters like Subriel Matias, Gary-Antoine Russell, and Richardson Hitchens have established themselves as legitimate threats, each possessing a unique skill set that could expose Stevenson's potential weaknesses. Matias, for instance, is a relentless pressure fighter with knockout power in both hands, while Russell is a southpaw with incredible speed and an aggressive offensive style. If Stevenson struggles against Lopez, it's unlikely he would fare any better against these other top contenders. Moving up in weight is always a gamble, and if Stevenson isn't fully prepared for the physicality of this new division, he could find himself in a position where his defensive skills alone are not enough to carry him to victory. Another issue Stevenson may face in this transition is whether his own power will be effective at light welterweight. At lightweight, he has already been criticized for lacking knockout power, often relying on technical skill and point scoring rather than finishing his opponents. This strategy has worked against certain fighters, but at 140, where opponents are naturally bigger and can absorb more punches, his lack of power could become a major disadvantage. If Stevenson can't keep his opponents off him, he may struggle to control fights the way he has at 135 pounds. Fighters at this weight class are not only more physically durable, but they are also more aggressive, which could put Stevenson in situations where he is forced to exchange more than he would like. If he can't establish a level of respect with his punching power, his defensive abilities alone may not be enough to secure wins. Ultimately, Stevenson's decision to pursue a fight with Teofimo Lopez raises more questions than answers. Is he truly